All right, so we're going to continue our discussion of game analysis. Looks like everybody played Cave Story, spelled different ways apparently, for at least 2 hours. It's good. The genre of Cave Story is, I would say, it's like a Metroidvania. Metroidvania is um, named after two games, Metroid and Castlevania. These are what we call genre-defining games. Let's find shots of Metroid for the NES. Like it blew people's minds when it came out for the NES because the NES was not a particularly powerful game system. It was better than the Atari 2600. It was better than Pitfall, which I showed you last time. Like you can see the graphics are noticeably better than Pitfall. Like Pitfall is painful to look at. Metroid, like actually, like it's not bad. Like Cave Story has graphics worse than this. You know what I mean? And Metroid like blew people's minds because they had this fairly expansive like world, and to get through the world, like you could gain power ups that would let you like roll into a ball and drop mines and things like that. And so as you played through the map, which let's see if I can find a picture of the map. Map's the first search thing. It actually has a fairly large world map in it. And as you play through it and you get power ups, it unlocks new parts of the map. And then that allows you to get new power ups, and the process continues. Oh, Pinterest. No, 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 no. Where? I had you blocked. Anyway. So you can see like it's actually like a fairly large world for like an NES game, which you know, you're talking about all of this fitting within, I don't know, a megabyte of data, like not a gigabyte, not a terabyte, a megabyte, I think, something like this. What's the size of the cartridge size? How big is it? Like not. Let's see if I can find the ROM. Let's do some fake piracy here. Metroid HD pack. Oh no, there's an HD pack. Famous games. Okay, here we go. So Metroid was 59 kilobytes. Sorry, not a megabyte. I overestimated that quite a bit. So Metroid was 59 kilobytes in size, and it's a game that you could play for a while. Like it was a game that like would suck you in, and you would play it for a long time. The original Legend of Zelda 64K, and that was another game that took hours and hours to beat. Like it was a big game for the NES. And I think we've lost a little bit these days when, you know, we've got Starfield eating up like, what is it, 150 gigabytes or something like that. And, you know, it's got nice graphics and stuff, but like, I mean, just look at this. Like Mike Tyson's Punch Out, 130K. Pro Wrestling, I played the heck out of that game. I got that for Easter. I think my fourth grade year, I got Pro Wrestling, and I played that game hour after hour after hour. It was so good. The original Mario Bros. 31K. Like, I think we've lost a lot, honestly. So the other game that defines the genre is Castlevania, and again, the graphics are not terrible. Like, you know, you're talking about an era not too, like, this is like how many years after Pitfall? Like there's a noticeable increase in the graphical quality here. Pitfall was 4 years earlier than Castlevania, and Pitfall was basically a linear game where you just kind of like run, you know, like with your super blocky dude across holes. You know, like this looks like kindergarten graphics, you know. And then you get over to Castlevania, and that's not bad. Like it's not like if you're playing 8-bit video games these days, this would be considered pretty good graphics even today, you know. And Castlevania again had a large map, and you could go up the map and fight monsters. You start off with your trusty whip, and as you go through up here, you can see this is where your item is, like a, yeah, right here. So he's got holy water, and so you can gain items and throw holy water and stuff like that. So, Castlevania. See if there's a map. And so again, this is like, you can see these things are like pretty impressive. And they were able to compress all of this down to a very small map file size by using repeating graphics. So you can see like these blocks here just repeated over and over again. And so you might say something like, draw this block 20 times or something like that. And then that cuts down the amount of space you need. But like these maps are like pretty large and intricate. And again, Castlevania would take you like hours, like if not days to play. And so those two games, Metroid and Castlevania, slide scrolling, you get items that unlock parts of the map, define the genre. And so Dark Souls is Metroidvania. Yeah. Hollow Knight. Has anyone here played Hollow Knight? That would be what I would consider maybe one of the finest examples of Metroidvania. Beautiful game. Hard. Pretty hard game. I recommend Hollow Knight. It's good if you're into that kind of stuff. Grime. This is the game we reviewed actually for this class last semester, and kind of a creepy game. Like my daughter's like, no, like it's kind of a creepy game, and the aesthetics of it actually kind of turned me off on it. It's a fun game. It's like a Dark Souls game where you have to learn timings and parry exactly, and if you do that, it's pretty easy. I have Hollow Knight installed, haven't played it. Yeah, really want to play it. Yeah, it's good. Like I played it for a bit of Hollow Knight, not as much as maybe I should have, but solid. Yeah, Grime, I would say is a good game. It's just the aesthetics are very displeasing to me. So anyway, so Metroidvania platformer. Yeah, okay. How many players? 1. Multiplayer? 1 for the main story. I didn't know that. That's cool. How fun was it? 4 out of 5. Okay. Cooperative or competitive? Luck or strategy based? Mostly strategy, right? Like, I don't know if there's any luck in Cave Story. Is there? Not. Maybe like when you kill monsters, you sometimes get hearts or something like that. Yeah, maybe. Maybe a little bit of luck in that regard. Downtime. Yeah, there's basically. I don't know. So I was gonna say you're always playing the game. Like there's not downtime. Like in Counter-Strike, when you die, you just sit there dead. Right? That's downtime. Downtime is generally a negative thing. Like for a lot of these things we're talking about, like luck and strategy, like there's not like a right answer, right? Cooperative or competitive. There's no right answer. Cooperative games are better. Competitive games are better. No. It's just a decision you have to make. In general, though, downtime is bad. And so if you have your players sitting there twiddling their thumbs, not doing anything, they're going to get bored. They're going to leave. They're not going to want to play your game. Counter-Strike apparently being the exception to that. D&D being an exception to that. Like in D&D combats, you will sometimes go, I attack, I miss, done. And then you wait an hour to go again. Because your friends are like, I'm going to look through all my spells. And you're like, cast Fireball. Cast Fireball. Like, you should not be playing a wizard. And they're just flipping through their notes. You're like, oh my gosh. And it's your turn again. I miss. You go. And then another hour goes by. Kills me. Tarkov has a lot of downtime. You have to wait 10 minutes to get into a match. And you spend half an hour building a kit. Yeah, there are definitely some games like that. What was the one I played? It's like you go into a dungeon. And there's limited portals to get out of the dungeon with loot. It's kind of like Escape from Tarkov a little bit. But it's like fantasy. And like, yeah, you just like you're queuing for a game for a long time. Overwatch had that problem. I would queue for a game for like an hour, and then by the time the game pops off, half the people disconnect because they were just AFK. You know, yeah. So downtime's bad. It's something you definitely want to minimize in your games. And Cave Story, like a lot of you said, one. And that was probably my first inclination for Cave Story. But Cave Story, you run so slow. Like I was just like, I was like literally getting bored playing the game because the text appears on the screen so slow. And if you hit the button, it'll scroll faster, but it's still slow. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, dude. The cutscenes take forever. The movement takes forever. You're just walking at slow speed all the time. You're getting bored at first. Yeah, like I was just like dying. I was like, oh my gosh. Like I'm not, it's not downtime technically, but like when you're making me walk across a screen at the speed of a snail, I'm just going like, oh, you didn't save? You had to restart? Yeah. Yeah, that'd do you. Yeah. Yeah. How easy is it to learn? Yeah, pretty easy, I would say. It's pretty easy. It's not very challenging at the beginning. Information about the game state. That's an interesting question. You kind of see everything on the screen. You don't know exactly like what the bosses are going to do and stuff like that. I would say it's mostly visible, visible game state. Like there's no real surprises. Abstract or simulationist. Oh, so we didn't talk about this last time. So an abstract game would be something like tic tac toe. What do the X's mean? What do the O's mean? Nothing. I'm conquering New York right now. No, not really. Even in games like chess, like you've got the king, you've got the bishop. Why do bishops move in diagonals? Nobody knows, That's still more abstract. A simulationist game would be like Axis and Allies, where you've got soldiers and tanks on the board, and you're capturing other provinces, and now that's your province, and it produces money for you and things like that. I plugged in a keyboard controller and had I rebound the controls. Like it was a weird control setup. Didn't like the keybinds, yeah. Yeah, like the first time I played it, I was just sitting there like hitting WASD, I was hitting the arrow keys, my character was not moving, and I'm like, how do I play this game? Which is not good. Like I would definitely like that's why like when I was reading Cave Story Wikipedia. Like when I was reading about like how like it was highly acclaimed, I'm like, if you play the game and you don't know how to move, like that's not good. Like it's not the end of the world, but it's like if you put me into a game and I hit WASD and up arrow, left arrow, right arrow, and I hit basically every key on the keyboard that I can think of to move, and my character's just standing there, not doing anything, that's like bad indie gaming, not good indie gaming. You know what I mean? Like that's what I expect to see like when a student does a game jam and they are just sitting over your shoulder, they're like, oh yeah, we use R to walk forward. You're like, why R? I don't know. You're like, okay. Yeah. So like did all of you guys rebind the controls? Because I did. I had to quit out and be like, okay. And then I plugged in the controller and set it to controller mode and rebound those things too. I can understand what's highly acclaimed. Took like an hour to understand the controls after that meshed well. Yeah, but like it's just that's the kind of like janky kind of like rough edges that you expect to see in an indie game. Where just like I don't know how to move, and there's no dialogue. Like in a normal like AAA game, it'd be like press R to walk forward or whatever the key they picked. I don't remember. And then press space to jump, and you're like, oh, okay, and it has those little like dialogues like kind of walk you through the controls, WASD to move around, this kind of stuff. This game it just puts you into the level, and then you can't move. You're not a PC gamer, so you didn't rebind anything. Yeah. So yeah, and then when you restart it, you had to play through the cutscene again. The cutscene took forever. So it's a claim and success. I don't know. Like I'm a little bit more down on it than like on other indie games like Undertale or Hollow Knight. I don't know if Hollow Knight's exactly indie, but let's say it is. Paved the way for retro themed 2D platformers. Yeah, I don't know. So seems a bit over exaggerated to me. So abstract or simulationist is whether you're simulating the real world or you're playing some sort of more abstract game where there's symbols and colors you're just kind of manipulating to get points, things like that. Cutscenes were annoying. Yeah. So like a good abstract game would be Azul. No, not no. No. Okay. Azul's a fun board game. By the way, we're having a board game night on campus tomorrow at 5, AC 1114. And so, yeah, theoretically, you're like making a stained glass window or something. But basically, you're just picking up colored tiles and putting them on your board and scoring them. What does it mean? Nothing. You know, what is it? Like, it's just you have colors and you're just kind of like putting things together and getting points and things like that. And you pick up things from the dish and put them in the other dishes. And it's an abstract game, right? It's probably listed as an abstract on here. Yeah, number 2 ranked abstract game. Here's another abstract game, Yinch. Never heard of this one before. But you'd see you've just got discs in a grid. What are you doing? Are you building the Constitution of the United States? No, it's just circles and discs and things like that. I'm not. Oh, Cosmo. This was at Gen Con this year. It's like you have this space octopus that cultists are worshipping and trying to bring into existence. Is that abstract? It's a strategy. Okay. It's an abstract. Where are the? Yeah, it's not listed as abstract yet. Okay. Maybe I clicked out of abstract. Cascadia. So you've got tiles and discs and things like that. Hive would be another one. So a lot of people like abstract games. I'm more of a simulationist kind of person. It's like you have these discs and you place them on stuff like that. But again, there's no right answer for this. Cave Story, I would say, is more simulationist, right? It's drawing the world as it is. It's got physics. It's got internal, oxygen and things like that. If you have oxygen in a game, that's more simulationist than abstract. Does it have a lower skill high cap? So if you play the game, do you get better at it? And if you keep getting better at it, how good can you get until you hit the maximum? I would say it probably has a high skill cap. What do you guys think? Like when you were playing it, did you feel like you're growing, like you're learning it, you're getting better at the combat, you're kind of understanding the monsters more, right? And the game itself has like a competitive mode, I think, right? Like after you beat it, like there's challenges and things like that. So there's a skill ceiling, there's room to improve. Yeah, you got better at like the hour and a half mark. Yeah. So I feel like it actually has a high skill cap. I mean, I didn't play it enough to really know, but if a game has competitive challenges where like people are trying to race for the best time, that's a high skill cap game, right? A low skill cap game would be something like tic tac toe. You can master it very quickly, right? And then you can't get any better. So some games, and I would say it's in general a negative to have a low skill cap game. A lot of kids' games are low skill cap deliberately so that adults don't just crush them. Like Candyland, Shoots and Ladders, they're almost not even games. There's zero skill in them. You just roll the dice and move. And whoever gets to the end first wins. There's zero skill in those games. It's a zero skill game. I don't like. Yeah, a lot of kids games are like low skill cap. But generally speaking, in general, having a high skill cap is considered the sign of a good game, where people can play it over and over again and feel like they're still getting better. They're still working towards becoming the best Osu player in the world. There's a guy on our Discord that will stream Osu sometimes. Osu game. Has anyone seen this game?
This is 10 stars. All right, it's only 2 minutes. Let's start from the bottom and work our way up.
And so it's a rhythm game. And so you're like Osu means to push in Japanese. And so like you start off and then the difficulty like increases. Let's see here. And so you can see like like it gets hard. So so games like that have a high skill cap, and especially anytime you have like a competitive scene that usually means it's a high skill cap game, and that's usually our entire generation knows those. Okay, yeah. If there's a competitive scene for a game, that usually means there's a high skill cap. How does it handle players with different skill levels? This is more of an issue in a multiplayer game. Like if you put newbies and experts together in a competitive game, it's usually a bad time. Like have any of you guys played Halo, where there's like mixed skill levels with like brand new players, with like veterans, Diamond League, whatever it's called, in the same server, and it's like a train wreck. Like it's not fun for the new players. It's maybe not even fun for the experienced players. Every so often it's fun, like when you're really good at a game, to just like go in and just like smash people, like in Age of Empires, walking in with your army of 1,000 hussars, they've been very slowly building up their little SimCity base. They've got like 5 pikemen, and then the winged hussars arrive, and there's, it's kind of fun every so often. Sometimes in Halo MCC, you'll play a casual match, and you can tell you're fighting top 1% players, and your team's all noobs. Yeah, it's not very fun especially if you're on the losing team. On the winning team, maybe every so often. But like when you're just partnered with, especially when you're partnered with people that are terrible, it's like, oh my gosh, that's because there's not enough people online, and so the matchmaking. Yeah, matchmaking is really hard to do. Matchmaking is one of those open issues in multiplayer games that is really hard to solve, especially in a game like Halo, where everybody's playing Master Chief, right? Everyone's playing the same class, essentially. And maybe you can customize, like, depending on the Halo game, maybe you can customize, like, you can have, like, shield lock and things like that. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, maybe, there's cosmetic customizations, but maybe you take sprint versus shield lock or something like that. Have a slight difference in your gameplay. Halo Reacher's armor abilities, yeah. But like you're basically all playing, a Spartan, right? You're all playing the same person. And what are you doing? You're killing the other people. Sometimes there's like map objectives, like capture the flag and things like that. But in general, you're just trying to kill the other people. And if they're better than you, they will kill you, and you will have a bad time. And there's not a whole lot of things you can do about it. If you're playing against a top 1% person and you're not anywhere near that skill level, it's just not very fun. You just die, and there's gadgets, yeah. And so it's hard, and so some games handle that by making you not compete in the same way. So for example, let's say you're bad at shooting. Like let's say you can't, your mouse, like, you can't do like some people are really good at sniping, like they can just move the reticle over somebody's head, and as they're running around, they can just keep that reticle on their head and snipe them all day long. Right? Let's say you're not that person and you're playing Overwatch. There's different classes available in Overwatch. So for those of you that don't know what Overwatch is, it's essentially Team Fortress 3. So Blizzard was like, what if we did Team Fortress? And there's all these different people that you can play as. And so if you're a sniper, you can play as Widowmaker, or how many snipers do they have? Like, there's the healing sniper. Hanzo's kind of a sniper. I don't know. You have like different options if you want to play a sniper. But if you're not good at aiming, you can play this guy. What does he do? He radiates healing around him, and so you don't have to aim at all. You just roller skate around the world, like wee, and just roller skating, and just people around you get buffed. Your teammates get buffed if you're around Lucio. And so bubble shield, drop all, shield rain, yeah. And so this is a way that you can handle differences in skill levels. So instead of having the person who can have the best precision with a mouse move over the head win every time, instead you can do things like play a healer. And so as Mercy, you don't have to aim. Has anyone here played Mercy before? Anyone here played Overwatch, actually? Like you don't have to be good at aiming, especially at enemies, as Mercy. You hate being a healer, yeah, it's fair. And so different strokes for different folks, like it's not just skill level. It's also like, do you want to play support? Only played Junkrat, yeah. And so Junkrat, you had to be able to aim with your hook, right? If you missed with your grappling hook, Junkrat would die, right? But if you could hit consistently and yeet people over to you, you could kill them. Right? So, uh, so with Mercy, like you don't have to aim, right? Your little healing staff will just kind of zoom and like kind of like find, allies, and even if you're terrible at aiming, you can be a perfectly effective and supporty Mercy. So he's your Call of Duty character. Soldier 76 is basically the COD soldier. Tracer's the scout from Team Fortress. Let's see. Where is Torbjorn? So Torbjorn is the engineer from Team Fortress 2, Team Fortress 1. Like quite literally, like, it kind of. I was kind of like looking up like the origins of these characters. I was kind of curious if like they like mentioned. Yeah, okay. Torbjorn's abilities and traits bear a resemblance to Engineer from Valve's Team Fortress 2. Yeah, and you can upgrade it as well. So like some of these things, like they kind of admit like, okay, yeah, this is just our version of Team Fortress. Some of them though, they're like, oh, this comes from an unknown, unreleased Project Titan inside of Blizzard. It's like, really? Was it? And so Overwatch handles different skill levels by giving you different options, right? So if I'm terrible at shooting, I can heal, right? If I'm terrible at that, or I just have no inclination, maybe I can play the scout, tracer, and run the flag or something like that. You know what I mean? And so in games like Halo, where everybody's playing the same thing and you're being judged on the same thing, it's really hard. You have to match make people pretty closely to each other. But then that also has a problem where you're always like on. Like if you're top 1% and you're always playing against other top 1% people, then you're always on like a fight for your life, especially when you're playing ranked, and when you lose, you go down, right? So you can't relax, you can't have fun, you can't just goof around every so often, you know, because you're constantly being evaluated for your performance. So is cave story dex or intelligence based? I'd say it's dex based. There's not a lot of thinking in it. Like maybe some of the boss patterns and things like that. Maybe a little bit of intelligence, like learning the patterns and things like that. Balanced, pretty balanced, sure. Don't have any issues there. Replayable. So, what do you guys think of the replayability of Cave Story? Would like let's say you beat it, you beat the story. Would you play it again? Would you want to play it again? Is there more to do if you play it again? What do you guys think? Some games have us coming back time and time again for years, right? The beginning would be a slog. Yeah, man, that. Oh, man, I'm getting bored just thinking about the beginning of the game. So I'm like, all this critical acclaim for it. I'm like, it's a really rough like experience. Not your style game. Yeah, I mean, I like Metroidvanias, like I do, but man, like just give me an option to skip dialogue. Like that alone would like just give me the like skip option. Like I've read it already. Let me skip it. Don't make me watch a cutscene. Like that's like a really big pet peeve that I have is like if I've seen a cutscene before, let me hit escape or something and just not watch it again. Because like I know you put effort into it, but I don't want to see it 5 times. Like I've seen it. I know what happens. Just let me skip it. Is a one and done for you? Yeah. So, but like Cave Story Plus has it has things to do after you've beaten the game, and so they have added replayability into it. Personally, I'm with you guys. Like I honestly think you guys have rated it higher than I did. I would probably put it right firmly in the 3 territory, just because of things like the slow walking speed, unskippable cutscenes, things like that are just like it just kills my fun for a game. yeah, and so but they have things you can do after you beat the game, and so if you really get into it, there's challenges and things like that. So I would say it's reasonably replayable, although there are issues with like the beginning being a huge slog, and so maybe not. I don't know. So that is Cave Story. Okay, so let's see if there's anything else we need to talk about with game design, because we are on game design week right now. You were going to design a game in Unreal Engine, and you're going to have to talk about kind of these principles of game design, like what makes your game fun. How about that being a good question, right? Like, what makes a game fun? So there are some established mechanics. You love platformers, yeah, I do too. Like, have you Castlevania's Symphony of the Night? It was an old PlayStation 1 game, and if you have an opportunity to play Symphony of the Night, that is a fantastic. I mean, it's quite literally a Metroidvania. It's a Castlevania game, but it is just chef's kiss, like absolutely perfection in terms of that genre. So when you're thinking about designing your game, and you should have some idea of like what Unreal Engine can do, right? You can move around in it, you can interact with objects, you can shoot them, you can touch them, enemies can shoot you. We haven't done a health system yet, but I think you can see you can have a variable for health. When you hit 0, you die. When they hit 0, they die. We made a little soccer game. So I want you to think now just about what kind of mechanics would you like to have in your game. You're going to have a final project due in the last week of school. And as you're going through the semester, as you're working on our daily assignments and things like that, as I'm giving you homework, like build a water area, build a bridge, I don't know, you can tailor these to your game that you're making. Okay. And so if you think about it now, it'll save you time and effort towards the end of the semester. So we just go over some mechanics that they have, some established mechanics that work in video games and board games and card games and things like that. And just think about like which ones like kind of appeal to you, what you might want to see inside of a game that you make, because that's part of the fun of video game making, right? Like a lot of people, like when they're young, they're like, I want to make video games, and then when they get to it, it's like, I don't know what I want to do. It's like there's this, like you're in 5th grade, you're like, I want to make video games for a living, and then you're in college, it's like, all right, make a video game now, and you're like, let's do a I don't know, platformer. So maybe these will spur some creativity in you. Okay, so bluffing game. I don't know if that's good for you guys because we're not going to do multiplayer. You can do multiplayer maybe, but bluffing oftentimes is in multiplayer where you lie to other people. If you're making a board game like Sheriff of Nottingham or something like that, you lie about what's in your inventory, and the sheriff can inspect it for contraband or not, or you can offer a bribe to the sheriff. But then if you bribe him, he might think, aha, you have contraband, and he'll look through your stuff. And so bluffing games can be a lot of fun in multiplayer. If you're doing single player, I don't know. Maybe you can have bots that bluff or something. I don't know. Bidding and auctioning. So there's a board game called Power Grid, where every turn a certain number of power plants come up for sale, and people bid on them. The highest bid wins. And then you add the power plant to your power network, and you supply cities with power. And some of them consume coal. And so if everybody's buying coal power plants, the price of coal goes up because more people are consuming coal than it's producing. If you get wind or solar, I don't know if they have solar in it. If you have wind power, then it just produces free electricity, but they tend to be more expensive than coal. And so basically you kind of have to look at what other people are doing and bid on them. And sometimes you can like bid just to make other people pay more for a power plant, things like that. That's fun. Monopoly has auctioning of properties. Do they have Power Grid on mobile? I would assume so. Like it's one of those big board games that a lot of people have played. In Monopoly, if you don't buy a province, a street, a property, then it goes up for auction and people can bid on it. guessing opponents' actions. There's a lot of social deduction games these days. These are pretty popular. Among Us is, of course, one that everybody knows. But there's like Werewolf, Mafia, games where Coup, Resistance. Sorry. There's a lot of these games where you're like trying to guess what the other people are going to do and guess, are they a good guy? Are they a bad guy? This kind of stuff. And that can be fun. Speed racing. This is probably the most common mechanic that I've seen in this class because it's pretty easy to do. So all you need to know is the blueprint for what is the current time, which I always forget because there's like 15 functions to get the time, and it's never the one that I'd always type in get time, and it's like never the right one. It's like get current time or something. I don't know. But once you know that blueprint, which is just a Google search away, you have like a platforming race with platforms in space, and when you touch the first platform, it starts a clock, and then when you get to the last one, it stops the clock and it prints out it took you 13 seconds. Congratulations, and then try and beat your time. And so that's a very common, very easy to implement mechanic. A lot of students do in this class. Speed racing. It's not particularly compelling, but I've had some students do fantastic jobs with this. One of them built this whole level with like lava, and the lava's like going up like this, and there's like trampolines you can bounce on, but over time, like the trampolines are now covered in lava, and there's coins you can pick up, and there's spinning platforms, and like a really fantastic job. He's at Santa Cruz now as a CS/game dev major, just started there this semester, or they on the quarter system, either way. So you can do good speed racing games. Coordination with friends, Barotrauma, World of Warcraft, where you have to work together to solve a challenge. There's a lot of games like this, cooperative games, Overcooked, where you're cooperatively cooking food. Just a lot of like party fun games are coordination games. Rock, paper, scissors. These aren't exactly mechanics, but just general things you can do. So I like games that have simple tools that allow complicated strategies. Zelda Breath of the Wild. Has anyone here played that game? Breath of the Wild, Zelda. It was a departure from. Did you guys like it? Was it fun? And if it was fun, why did you find it fun? Let me ask you that question. Mid. Loved it. Eventually, it's boring. Have you played Tears of the Kingdom also? So what makes Breath of the Wild fun? Like what was the aspect of Breath of the Wild that made it more fun than like Twilight Princess or Wind Waker? You have Tears of the Kingdom, haven't played it. Tears of the Kingdom is almost like an engineering game. Like, okay, I've got 2 rockets, I've got a cannon, I've got 3 platforms and 2 wheels. What can I make? And the answer is a rocket powered motorcycle. And you like glue things together and fire it off, and you love the world. You love the ability to do anything you want in any order. You love the freedom. Yeah, it's an open world game, which is different from. I shouldn't say that. The original Zelda 1 was an open world game. You can actually go to any of the dungeons in any order, almost. Like there were a few prerequisites, like you had to get, I think, the boomerang or something like that. Like there was a couple of things that you had to do first, but you could almost do any of the 9 dungeons in any order you wanted. You're a Zelda stan, yeah. But like some of the later Zeldas were like more linear. Zelda 64 didn't have, like, it was open world, but it didn't have a lot of freedom in it. It sort of railroaded you. Yeah, so the open world nature of Breath of the Wild was nice, but a big part of it was this thing here where it says simple tools allow complicated strategies. So Breath of the Wild gave you a couple tools. You could freeze time and then hit an object, and when time unfroze, all the momentum you put into it would be released. So that's one tool. You do bombs. You could raise up blocks of ice from water. You could hang glide. Or some of the other ones, I don't know. But like you could combine these together. So like you could freeze things and like raise a block and then stand on it, then it boosts you into the sky when it unfroze. You could hang glide and get to the thing that you're trying to get to. And then somebody else might come to that same puzzle and solve it a completely different way. So that they might chop down a tree and freeze the tree in place and hit the tree a bunch of times and stand on the tree. When it unfreezes, it launches off like a rocket, and then they get there that way. And so the really fun part of Breath of the Wild was that they didn't force you into doing a specific strategy to win. They're just like, here's a bunch of tools, solve it however you want. And I know a lot of the ways that I solve things, like I took a bomb and stuck it into 2 gears and it stopped the gears, was probably not the way you're supposed to do it. No, you're not supposed to use gear. Like, no, it's fine. Like, they're just like, cool, you solved it. Congratulations, you know? So, Breath of the Wild got boring when there wasn't anything else to explore. So, yeah, but that means after you 100% of it, right? Like, after you've done all of the dungeons and solved all of the puzzles, it got boring. Fair enough, right? They did have the trials, Master's Trial, whatever it's called. But, yeah. Skyward Sword was very slow. Yeah. Tears of the Kingdom is pretty neat. Like and it's the same idea. You have simple tools for complicated strategies. You got this thing, you got this thing. This thing, when you hit it, it spits fire, and this thing, when you hit it, it's a rocket that takes off, and this thing is a wheel that you mount on an axle, and basically it's just like if you love Legos and things like that, you just Lego yourself together this contraption, and your horse is riding and pulling a tow truck, and the trailer that you're pulling with your horse is a battleship that's shooting flames at like there's so many like just wildly inventively creative things you can do in not Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, that it's fun. And it's the same basic engine as Breath of the Wild, but they gave you different sets of simple tools to do complicated things, and that's fun. That's a really fun thing. Okay, so rock, paper, scissors. Good example of this. Not the game, by the way. Rock, paper, scissors. The game is very boring. Like, you know, like whatever. Like maybe there's strategy to RPS, but you know, it's not a very good game. What I mean by rock, paper, scissors is if you have one strategy, there's another strategy that defeats it, and then that strategy has another strategy that defeats it, and maybe the original strategy defeats that one. And so there's no best strategy, but there's rather a rock, paper, scissors trade-off. And games like Overwatch have this design. Whether or not they implement it correctly, it really depends. But like tanks are defeated by, I don't know, tanks are defeated by damage dealers, or maybe it's the other way around. Then damage dealers are defeated by turrets. I don't know. Like there's some RPS thing where like this archetype is supposed to beat this archetype, and this archetype is supposed to beat this archetype, and then that one beats the original one. And whether or not they implemented it correctly, like as Symmetra, I could routinely beat Roadhog in Overwatch, which I don't think was supposed to happen. I'm playing a defensive character who has very low health. Roadhog not only has huge amounts of health, but can drink a jar of whiskey or something and restore his health. And even still, as long as I could dodge that hook, I could usually kill a Roadhog as Symmetra. And then they fixed Symmetra so that she wasn't good. And I was like, she wasn't good. She wasn't good already. She was already bad. You know, like it took a lot of skill to actually be able to damage down a damage dealer. But they're like, no, defense people aren't supposed to be able to win that way. Okay, I won't play anymore. Cool, thanks. And that's, you know, that when I quit Overwatch. I was like, all right, you made your choice. I've made mine. Peace. Another example of RPS gameplay would be Age of Empires 2. You have spearmen that defeat cavalry. You have swordsmen that defeat spearmen. You have archers that defeat swordsmen and spearmen. And you have cavalry that defeats archers. So archers beat infantry. Infantry beat cavalry. Cavalry beat archers. And there's two different types of infantry: the anti-cavalry and the anti-infantry infantry. And so that's like the fundamental mechanic of Age of Empires. And so if you scout your opponent and see they're going all in on cavalry, you build a ton of pikemen or halberdiers, and then when their cavalry rolls in, you stab them to death with your pointing sticks and you win. So then they are like, oh, I lost all my horse boys. So now they build archers, and they build archers to kill your spearmen. You're like, oh no, he's got archers now. I need to switch into cavalry, and so the game, you have this rock paper scissors mechanic that it makes the game very fun. And so scouting is very important in that game. If you can see what they're building, and you're roughly equal on economy, you will build counter units to their units and win. So Pokemon types are another great example of that. Yeah, like yesterday I was fighting Giovanni, and he had rock type, and so I used steel type to defeat him. I had it's called Beldon or something like that. No, it's the evolved version of that. Metagross, yeah. So that one is fighting rock. Half, yeah. So I beat his Reg Rock with my Metagross. Giovanni from Pokemon Go. I don't play Pokemon Go very often these days. The Niantic annoyed me too much, but it's like I'll put it up and kill Giovanni. So yeah, but you're absolutely right. Like Pokemon is a rock paper scissors. Like this type beats this type, this type beats this type, this type beats this type, and yeah, it's still out. It's still around. I think Gen I don't know 9 or something just came out for it. So when I turned it on, I'm like, oh look, new Pokemon. And it's catching the new Pokemon. There's like 17 million quests that I haven't done because I don't care anymore. But yeah. RPS. So like Giovanni's guys are too strong to beat any other way than by just playing counter types to them. Okay, so drafting is another mechanic where you've got a bunch of options and you pick an option, and then other people don't have that option. So for example, if you've played League of Legends, you can draft characters or do bans on characters and things like that. Sushi Go would be a card game. You take one card, you pass your hand to the next person, and then they pass and take one and you pass it on. It's a cool mechanic. It's a lot of fun because you not only get to pick whatever's best for you, but you're also taking away cards that they can't take, and also what cards they have, and so you can guess what kind of cards they're going to be playing based on what they're taking and things like that. Betting games, I bet I'm going to take 5 tricks, spades, that kind of thing. Worker placement games is like board games. Different jobs that you can do. You've got 4 workers. You take one of your workers, you put it on the cook bread spot, and now you've made bread. Because you've made bread, you got a ton of food, but also nobody else can make bread because you took that spot. And so you're blocking other people from taking options by taking them. And so you've got all these options available at the beginning, and as people place workers on the board, less and less options become available. So whichever one you really need, you need to do that one first, even if it's not necessarily worth the most victory points, because you guys are going to starve or something. And there's one food spot left. You're like, oh, I got to take it, even though some other thing might be better for you. Inventory systems. Starfield has a terrible inventory management system. It's really bad. It's a fun game. It is. Like a lot of people are talking smack about it. It's actually a fun game. But its inventory system has a lot to be desired. I have a huge cargo ship that is only holding crafting goods, crafting materials, because I'm doing crafting, but like you just never know what you're going to need, and so I just haul around 1,500 kilograms of just junk, not junk, but like all the different crafting materials. So I can make anything I need. Map control. This applies in first-person shooters and in board games and things like that. We got people in here that play Halo, so you guys know what I'm talking about. Like you have to control point A, right? You guys know what I mean? There's like control points on the map, and you go stand on them, and it goes, and you're captured. And then based on the number of points you have, control points you have, it generates victory points. And map control is one of the most important aspects for winning around. Yeah. In board games, like you play Risk, you're claiming areas on the map. That would be another example. And that there's a lot of like really like it feels good to people, right? Like when you you're fighting over a control point and you capture it, you're standing there and you capture it, and your team's now getting points. Like there's something very satisfying about like owning like a chunk of the map, and guarding the doors and things like that. Like there's something that feels really nice about that. Trading, hey, I'll offer you 2 sheep for your wood, that kind of stuff. Catan, games where you pass, resources to and from each other is an important part of a lot of board games. Press your luck, you keep rolling until you lose. I don't really like those games. I kind of hate them actually, but there's a lot of games that are kind of press your luck. Resource allocation, where you have to choose like what you're going to focus on. This can apply to like Starfield, for example. Where are you putting your skill points? If you haven't played Starfield yet, when you put a skill point into a skill, you can't level it up to level 2 until you've completed a quest for that skill. So, for example, I'm like, okay, I'm about ready to get piloting 3. Piloting 3 allows you to get B tier ships, the next tier of ship up. So I put my first point in, and it's like, oh, you have to kill 5 people in space combat. I'm like, oh, that sucks. I just killed 20, and now there's no pirates left. Dang. And so, like, things that you want to have at a higher tier, like, you kind of have to take them earlier in the game, just so that you can kind of accumulate, whatever it is, like speech challenges. They're common, but they're not that common. And it's like if you want to level up your diplomacy skill or whatever it's called, you have to put a point in early, and then you sort of accumulate successful speech challenges over time. And then once you hit 5, you can take the next level, and then now you need 8 or 10 or whatever it is. And so you kind of like, if you want that to be at level 3, you have to kind of take it early. But there's a lot of things you have to take early. Like if you want to, fly a spaceship, you have to put points into that so you can start leveling it up over time by killing enemy spaceships. And so there's this really feeling of like, oh man, I really need to do this, but I really need to do this. If you want to level up stealth, you have to get stealth shots off. And like my current one, like I have to sneak attack people 40 times, which is a lot to get to tier 4 stealth. And, so, that people chewing over like where you're going to put your allocation points into things is a big part of a lot of games, and it makes people feel really good. Payload's important as well for resource management, or like your ammo or something like that. Or what do you mean by that, Jacob? Building an economy. A lot of games have like an economy engine that you build up. Age of Empires, you get your workers going. StarCraft, you get your drones going. Collecting Vespine gas and whatever the crystals are called, and you want to get like a good, strong economy going, and that funds your war effort. And a lot of board games like Terraforming Mars and Champions of Midgard and things like that. Like you try to like get all these combos going off where you're like pulling in tons and tons of resources, and then that funds your war effort or funds your victory points or whatever. So. There's a lot of games that have an economy basis, not like a pure first-person shooter like Overwatch. I don't know if Halo has an. I don't think it has an economy system, but maybe like the open world. Maybe map control, resource management is not having ammo makes you scrounge. Having grenades helps you win. Yeah, well, like there's an open world element to the Halo Infinite too. I think, right? I never got to that part. I only played through the little tutorial on it. Having people move simultaneously also cuts down on downtime, things like that. So, yeah, we already done that. So, what I want you guys to do for Tuesday is I want you to come up with a rough draft. I'm not going to hold you to it, but it's going to kind of like help you think about what you're going to do for your final project. So I want you to propose the final project to me. Like, what do you want to do by week 18 in this class? I want to make a first-person shooter. I want to make a third-person shooter. I want to make a top-down tactics strategy game. There's a lot of options. We've been doing a third-person jumping, platforming, shooting thing. You don't have to stick with that, but that's kind of like the default template I use. So Halo Infinite campaign is open world yet. So the main thing that I want from you guys is what's going to make your game fun. Okay, you don't have to have a big AAA game that's got 1,000 planets to visit and And a lot of students propose things like, "Oh, I'm going to have 8 weapons." I'm like, no, too much, too much. Scope it down. I want from you a vertical slice of a game, a playable chunk of a game that is fun. And you have to find the fun. You have to find what makes your game fun. And that's the main thing I'm going to be looking for. And so think about your genre. Think about like the game genre and maybe like the theme of it. Like, is it sci-fi or fantasy or something like that? And propose to me what you're going to do by week 18. And then we'll read those over on Tuesday and then get back to doing Unreal development. Make sure that since it's now September, make sure that you go onto the Epic Game Store and get your free assets for September. Try and have that done by Marketplace. Try and have that done 5/3's out. I'm going to need to think about if I'm going to switch to that or not. So if you go to free for the month here, try and get these all downloaded by Tuesday. West Editor, that's cool. $100 plugin. That's neat. Palisol. So get these things downloaded by Tuesday, not Monday, Tuesday. And maybe we'll use them. That's cool. Maybe we'll use them on Tuesday. Okay, so that's it for today. See you guys on Tuesday. Peace.